fair few years ago, my father-in-law bought me what most people would consider a pretty random Christmas present. It was a bottle of ammonia, some caustic soda, and a pot of silver nitrate. But to me, it wasn't random. It was really exciting because it was the chemicals needed to make a silver mirror, to sort of do the chemical silvering process. So straight away, we got outside with a bit of glass, gave it a go. I had some instructions that a fellow glass artist, Jörg Malinsky, sent me, and they were in German, so I translated them. We gave it a go and failed. But I didn't expect it to work the first time, so next weekend we tried again and failed again. And that sort of went on for a bit until I put all these chemicals to the back of the cupboard and cracked on with things that I did know how to do. Then, probably twice a year, I'll get it out and say, right, I'm going to give chemical silvering a go, taking notes of what went wrong along the way and sort of failing again to varying degrees. I started to manage to get some results, but they weren't a really nice mirror finish. But that was in the past. I've cracked it, I've got the formula down, and I've practiced it a few times, getting consistent results, so that's what I'm going to go over today. But before I crack on with it, if you're a fan of reverse glass, sign painting, gold leaf, digital processes, and much more, then you're in the right place, because that's all this channel's about, and I'll try to release a video every couple of weeks. Also, if you'd like to support the channel, there's a link to my Patreon in the description. It's also a link to Buy Me a Coffee, where you can kind of make a one-off donation just to support the channel or buy me a pint or coffee. There's also a link to my Etsy shop and the Happy Gilder Facebook group, which is nearly 1,000 strong now, all really good artists sharing ideas and helping each other out. Right, that out of the way, let's crack on with it. Right, before we do anything, I need to find out what side of the glass to silver. Now, this was a revelation to me. I only just found out recently that both sides of the glass are different, and that's because of the process of how glass is made, or how float glass is made anyway. It's like the glass mixture, or however you call it, the sort of molten glass liquid, is poured into a tray and floated on a bed of molten tin. And that side down, that is what is called the tin side of the glass. Now, when it's finished, it looks the same. You're not going to see any difference on both sides of the glass, but there is tin residue on one side, and that does affect everything that you do with glass. It affects how the paint goes on, how gold leaf goes on, and how silver goes on. So I only found that out recently, so I've probably made loads of pieces by, gilding the wrong side of glass, but better late than never. So I'm going to show you now a really simple trick of how to identify that side of the glass. This is just a little bit of float glass. I'm just going to cut it in half so that we can see both sides and how different they are. So that's the same sides. I'm just going to give this a clean with just a standard glass cleaner. This isn't the proper cleaning process for when we do the silvering. This is just to kind of show you this process, and then we'll clean the glass thoroughly after. So I'm just going to turn one bit over. Give that a good wipe as well. What I've got in here is distilled water. I'm going to bring this camera down a little bit. I really hope I can get that with this camera. Might be a bit tricky, but hopefully it'll be visible. Right, and this is just releases one drop at a time. And start by just putting drops on here. Right, now, let me just bring this above. I'm not sure how well that shows on here, but you can see here that liquid isn't holding its form. That's sort of allowing it to spread out. And here, that's sort of almost like there's something resistant, like surface tension on there, that's causing those drops to hold their form. That is the tin side of the glass. This is what's called the air side, and this is the side that we want to be applying our silver to, and our paint and our gold leaf. So pretty simple method. There is another way of using a UV light, but you have to be in pitch blackness, and I haven't got anywhere pitch black in my house at the moment. So there's a video on YouTube of how to do that. If you've got a UV light in a pitch black room, that's even easier than this. So yeah, that's that. Now let's move on to cleaning it. Okay, I've got my bit of glass and I've just written tin on the tin side so that I don't forget. It doesn't matter, that'll come off easy with a bit of white spirit later. And all I've got in here is washing up liquid. You know, nothing special about it, because what I don't want to do is use a glass cleaner that might leave some kind of, you know, residue or something like that on it. I want to completely degrease and clean this glass. And this is the best way to do it. You know, just using a kind of scouring pad, really thoroughly do it, get any sort of white spots, grease and like that off it. And then once you've sort of done that, you want to kind of rinse that off with distilled water. So I've got a bottle of distilled water here, and I'm just going to pour that over that and get that off. Now, I'm going to take a bowl of washing up liquid and water out with me as well, and the scouring pad and the distilled water, and do that just before we kind of apply the mirror solution. But that is the best way to clean that glass for the silvering process. Right, so we're ready to go. So on here I've got my glass, and I've levelled that out because it's really important you do this, because you want the surface tension to hold your, well, mixture we'll call it, or solution, onto the glass. And that's not going to do that if this is on the wonk. So if you've got some like little spaces that you can put underneath, use a spirit level both ways, make sure that is 100% flat. So what I've got prepared, well, not even prepared, I've got 60 millilitres of distilled water twice. So although they're different glasses, they're both 60 ml of distilled water. I've got some caustic soda and some silver nitrate. Now, where I've sort of not made a mistake, I just didn't have the right instructions in the past, is it would give me all of this accurate information as to how many grams of silver nitrate I use, and then it would just say mix it with some water. And that is where I think I was going wrong. So at the moment, I think I've got this down. So what I'm going to do is measure out 2 grams of silver nitrate. There we go. And that is going to go into 1 of the cups of water. It's important when you do this that you wear goggles, because, I mean, silver nitrate stains your skin, but I've got a friend who does like wet plate photography where you mix silver nitrate with collodion, and he said before, you know, that mixture can blind you. So I'm not sure. I mean, it's better to be safe than sorry, you know. So I'm going to do the same. Another 2 grams of the caustic soda. That's it. This is also known as sodium hydroxide, by the way. It's just caustic soda in the UK. So that's going to go into my other cup of water. It's important we keep these separate while we're just getting them mixed up. Okay, so just going to mix that up. Now I want these to completely dissolve. I think I had a tiny bit of silver nitrate on my finger, and you can see that's had a little bit of a reaction and going black, but that's not going to matter. That'll be absolutely fine. Mix these up properly. Okay, so both of those solutions have dissolved. Now I need to mix them together. And what I'm going to do is just get my ammonia ready. And it's really, really important that you do this in a well-ventilated area. So I'm in a shed with the door open, because ammonia, this stuff will take your breath away. It's bloody horrible. Right, so anyway, this is where a pretty smart reaction happens. Let me just bring the camera down. So pouring the silver nitrate into the caustic soda mixed. And there you go, that is what we expect to happen. So what I'm going to do now with the ammonia is, using a dropper, I'm going to slowly add drops of ammonia and then swirl this around. And you'll see this will gradually start to become clear. Now you'll do this in drops, and in between, or a few drops at a time, and in between, put the lid back on the ammonia. You don't want that lid off, it's bloody horrible. Right, let's give it, that'll do for now. It's already reacting pretty well with that. You see we're going to need a fair bit more than that to dissolve all of that, but let's carry on with it. Now when you read some of the instructions, it says to do that, it sometimes gives you like accurate drop counts, but I've tried that. It just, you know, because of them not giving you the accurate kind of water measurement, I found that makes a massive difference. Like before, when I was using a lot of water, I was using so much ammonia to kind of break this down. Then when you're using, kind of much less water, that seems to work a lot better. Or you seem to need less to sort of get that down. God, it's starting to stink now. Okay, so I think we're good. Actually, there's a tiny little bit, and you really have got to get every bit. And there's sometimes it's just this stubborn crumb left in there. So, when it comes towards the end of adding the ammonia, you'll be adding it in much smaller amounts, just to kind of, you don't want to overdo it or put any more than you need in there. So just those tiny few drops should get rid of that little crumb. And then while that's settling, I'm going to go to the next stage, which is weighing out some dextrose. So let's pop the scales down, pop that back there. Right, what I'm going to be adding here is 8 grams of dextrose. So there we go. Right. Look at the minging mess that's made where I've kind of spilt a bit of it. And that's what that does to your skin. If you get it on your skin, you've got to wait until it sort of grows out, because you can't wash it off. Right, there we go. 8 grams of dextrose in there. Stir that until that's dissolved, and that will sort of go a bit browny again, which is fine. I'm just going to, while that's stirring, I'm just going to have one last check that my glass is clean. So, bring that up. Again, I've brought out the warm soapy water, just to kind of scrub anything that might have left a kind of little white spot or anything like that. Then rinse that nicely with the distilled water. Right. So, one other thing. We look up here, I've got a shed heater. I'm just going to move the camera back. That will speed up the process of the silver kind of taking to the glass. So it's far enough away for it to not to be baking hot, but I'm just going to pop that on. Right, and that looks all dissolved. Here we go. Right, bring it in. Right, I think we're covered. Right, moment of truth. Or is this one going to get deleted as well? Ooh, that's pretty good, isn't it? Right. Now, I need to get this stuff out of here and give it a rinse, because this solution, if you leave it for too long, it becomes poisonous, and I've heard it can also be explosive as well. So let's get this, set this aside, and what I want to do is I want to wait for this to dry, because I've made that mistake before of just rinsing it before it's dry and it just blasts the coating off. And when I do rinse it, I want to rinse it by pouring water on it, not spraying water on it. So I'm just going to put this somewhere outside for it to dry and then clear all this stuff up. And there it is, chemically silvered mirror. Now, a few things I'd say, which are things that I've learned along the way. The silvering is going to be the last thing you want to do. You know, if you've made a glass piece and you've done your painting, your gold leaf, that's when you want to do the silvering, because then you can back everything up with spray paint. I strongly recommend using spray paint. When I've done it before with enamel, you can see tiny little brush marks in the back of the silver. That could be because I was using a pretty crap brush, but either way, I think it just makes sense to just real light coatings of a spray paint to seal it in. The other thing, you know, you'll be able to see when this solution is sort of turning milky, whether or not it's done it over the whole surface or whether there might be a little spot where you potentially see light through it. If that happens, all you do is just apply a bit more of the solution again. So do the process, wait for it to dry, rinse it with the distilled water, and then just make up a small amount of the solution again, apply it, and then it will be 100% mirrored. Most of the time you don't have to do that. This was a single pour, and this is fine, pretty perfect. But I have had it in some cases where you'll pour it and then there'll just be a patch where you think that hasn't quite gone on as solidly. Again, easy, just do it again. And the main thing about this process is silver nitrate. I mean, in the UK, you're probably going to get 25 grams for 40 to 45 pound. Now, if you think that uses 2 grams for a mirror, that is, I can't do the maths, but that is nothing. You know what I mean? When you compare white gold leaf, how much that costs, doing 2 coats of it over a whole glass piece, you know, for a large piece, I reckon I'd spend probably about 40, 50 quid on gold leaf. In this case, you could do it for 2, 3, 4 pound, which is just unbelievable. And it's a nicer effect. You know, I know silver over time does tarnish, but, you know, if you seal it right, you know, it will last for decades. And it's just that kind of completely, you know, perfect finish rather than gold leaf. No matter how good you are going to see creases up close or you've burnished out the sort of folds and stuff like that. So, yeah, to me, this is sort of, once you know how to do it and get it down, it's a no-brainer. But there's no point making one of these, you know, considering you can buy mirrors for next to nothing. It's all about using this in the kind of nice sort of reverse glass processes like glue chipping, acid etching and stuff like that. So I've got a piece, and it was that original piece that I tried to do around my father-in-law's when we first got the kit. So I'm now just going to run through that in a time lapse and finally silver it after all these years.